this is Christy at the West Regional Branch of the Mobile Public Library, bringing you another hand lettering design. Let's get started. Alright, today we are going to learn about what I like to call, in my little mind, jewelry for our letters. Now you may be thinking, what in the world is she talking about? We're going to add some shading, some little shadows, and then we're also going to learn about highlights. The reason in my mind it's jewelry is it's one of those things you don't have to have, but done in just the right amount, it can add a little pizzazz to your lettering. So we're going to start out, and actually I'm just going to go ahead and write the word hi 3 different times, and we're going to show you 3 different ways to approach this. Now typically I like to have my thin lines super thin, but you're probably going to need to adjust them a little bit, because you've got to have something to work with whenever you go to do the shading. So as I go along, you might watch me, add in here and there to make it a little thicker. So just kind of keep that in mind. But after you've done this so long, where you keep them super thin, it's hard to adjust on the fly. That's why I go back and do it as I'm working with it. Alright, so we're going to start with this little coral guy down here. And I'm going to use kind of a fairly light gray, it might be leaning towards medium, to make our shadows. But you're going to see me to go ahead and beef up this guy. The main thing is, since you're adding color, try to make sure that you keep those lines as sharp as you can, which is a little tricky. So if you're able to kind of make them thicker as you go, be sure to do that. Otherwise, this method is fine. Just got to kind of keep your hand real steady. Alright, so we're going to start as though the sun is coming here. So always know where your light source is. Like I said, mine's about like this. Alright, so think of the sun coming this way, and think of this as a solid object. So the sun is going to make a shadow underneath and behind these. So the shadow is going to have to go to the right. Hard part is when you have curved letters. So start out really thin and pull it down. Now typically you want the shadow, the shaded part, to be the same thickness all the way through. But it does have to be just a tiny bit thinner when you're up here in those curves, okay? So there's the side of that, and we want to go underneath of this little tail and this little loop. And again, you're going to make it thinner because you wouldn't see as strong of a shadow the way that's oriented, okay? So then it's usually easiest to start down here, maybe just a touch of an angle. And then I like to start up here too, so I can get that nice curve around. Okay, and then we're going to go to the back side of this. And probably want to slow down a little bit more slowly than I'm taking it. Alright, you want to go underneath here. And sometimes it's good to just leave a little white space, and you can go back and touch up with the color you used. Try to get it exactly the way you need it. Alright, don't forget your dot up here. Give it just a little something. And then we're going to go, see how I start at a tiny little bit of an angle and drop it down. And just stop in that curve at a point. Now again, these are trickier when you have to try to get the curve, pick it up, and carry it on up here. Once you get to the straighter parts, it's not too difficult. Alright, so that's kind of our first shadow. Just fairly simple, straightforward, and plain, but it gives a little dimension to it, right? Okay, so now we're going to go to the next high. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to thicken up our thin stroke just a little bit. You still want to be able to see that contrast, so don't get it as thick as your downstroke. Just beef it up just a hair. Just so you have some room to work with when you're putting in that shadow, okay? Alright, so now we're going to do the exact same thing we did. So start up here in that curve and pull it around. And as we said, remember to keep it the same thickness once you get out of that curve. And you can make it thicker or thinner depending on how you want it to look. And you can use black instead of gray, but not on this design because we're actually going to go back over this with black. But you can vary it up. You can use a darker gray, whatever color combination you think looks appropriate. Alright, so let's get that right in that curve there. Don't forget our dot. Come at your angle and pull it down. Be sure to get thinner into that curve. Start right here, pull that guy up, okay? Alright, now this is going to be really cool. We're going to take one of our Food and Soup pens. You can do whichever one you're most comfortable with, the hard tip or the soft tip. And you're going to try to make a line between the color, in our case green, and the gray. So pick up just inside of that curve and pull it down. And remember, don't cross over this loop. You want to leave that green. And then you do need to go between the green and the gray here. You may need to go back and touch up the gray. Just depends on how much color you were able to get down the first time. Alright. And it just gives it one more layer of dimension to it. There's really no specific wording for it or technique. It's just adding a little something extra. Alright, so now let's go to our last version. Same thing we've been doing. Gonna thicken up the tiniest bit our upstrokes. Just a little bit there. Okay, and we're gonna add gray still. Actually, no, you know what? Let's change. Let's do purple. Let's look at how that looks. Because you can use even a different color as long as there's enough contrast for you to be able to see that it's supposed to be a shadow there. And that gives it a little softer look, a little different look to it. And you can keep going with these. You can actually just continue to make multiple shadows, just whatever suits your design style. And for me, these kind of look a little retro sometimes, a little more casual. So if you're doing something fun this summer or spring, you might want to incorporate something like this. You could do it on, I think of like teenagers, kind of like this type of style. So, all right, and now we are going to add just a little bit something fun. And here I have just a white gel pen, and we're going to put a highlight. So now you don't want to go anywhere where there's a shadow, and so you want to go on what would be the thick parts. And you can do it any way you like. I like to just be fun and add a little dot, and then just pull down a line. So we're going to do that on all the little thick parts here. And we're even going to do it on our little dot for the eye. Alright, so there is a fun way to add a little something extra to your lettering and give it some dimension. Thanks for watching and have a great day.